All right, hey, so I want to talk about the year 2016. It is currently January 3rd, 2021, and I've just been talking to some people in some like kundalini yoga group talking about how we had, or there's two other people said they had a kundalini awakening in 2016 as I did, and one of them said it happened in like July or August, which is where I think mine happened, although I don't know if I have documentation specifically. But um, that year, I'm just thinking about it, and it's like that year's blowing my mind how much stuff was done and how many adventures happened that year. Like, considering the amount of movement that I normally do, like, I've pretty much been in this apartment here for like 2.5 years, other than going to Kentucky one time and Indiana one time just for a few days. Um, seriously, yeah, seriously, like 4 days for the entire thing. But in 2016, I started the year in South Milwaukee. I worked a few jobs. I remember there was backlash about the mosque coming into St. Adalbert, which is the Catholic church that I grew up in. It became a mosque that year. And I visited that mosque, and I went to like a town hall meeting where people were protesting the mosque coming in there. And that was just like January. Then I met Nicole Maxey in late January, and she was just so cool, so hot, and I was just totally in love with her. But um, she made me feel really good. She made me feel on top of the world, like all the time. Like that girl will look at me, and it just filled me with a lot of energy. It wasn't the only thing giving me energy because I was on a large stack of nootropics, smart drugs, that year as well, um, along with using marijuana, and I think I smoked cigarettes that year. Um, any other kind of substances we want to incriminate ourselves with on this video? Phenibut. Yeah. But I went to like just a few months later after January. I don't know how all this fit in there. I went to New York City with my friends Dave and Gary. And then I went to Las Vegas, Nevada, Sedona, Arizona, and like I think parts of California, maybe one other state over there. I don't know. Driving around the desert in a Mini Cooper with my friend Amber, and those were like two incredibly different adventures. And then I had a Kundalini awakening in I think July or August, and then by the first or second week of September, I was in Northern California for the rest of the year. And by the end of the year, I was selling Obama phones on the street. Like, what a year. I can't believe all that fit into one year. And then, like, okay, 2017 is the one year I didn't release an album of music from 2004 or 2004 to 2020. 2016, it's like I consider myself to be introverted, natively introverted. 2016, I like the drugs I was on, or whatever it was. I was very extroverted. I moved around a lot, and what a time! What a time! And it was an election year, so it was like, um, if you paid attention to media or social media or anything, it was crazy. This year was crazy again, a totally different kind of crazy. Um, but damn, 2016 was like its own universe. I suppose every year is, but that one I'm just really having some mad reminiscence about that year. I'm so glad I lived that year. I looked totally different, and I dressed pretty different, and oh man, I think it was maybe the first year I ever used Bitcoin. Might have been 2015, but I used Bitcoin to buy nootropics online, modafinil specifically. I just like I covered so much territory, and I remember feeling good a lot of the year, even when I wasn't on drugs. Um, I remember feeling good. I remember looking good. I got really thin, and so it's like at certain times I remember feeling really bad. But I think one thing that happened, and one thing that cigarettes tend to do to me, is if I'm smoking cigarettes and on any other drug, that nicotine fit that I keep getting will also affect the use of the other drug and speed it up, no matter what it is. It's like it could be coffee or weed or whatever else it was. And that year I was on nootropics. So like I think that the nootropic stack that I had was modafinil or armodafinil. So it was either like um, mod alert, wake alert, um, art vigil. What a cool name for a drug. And can't remember what the other one is. Um, it's a really basic one. Um, those are bought through um, like Moda Cat or something like that, and it was through like using Bitcoin, getting these drugs from India, and I was also trying phenibut, which isn't as smart. That's like the cosmonaut drug. I kind of missed that. I remember taking phenibut on the plane to New York, and then like aniracetam, phenylpiracetam, and noopept, which is the one with the tiny, tiny spoon. And it made me sensitive in odd ways. Wow. Yeah, and then what else? Yeah, the kundalini awakening. And by that I mean an experience of like yoga and meditation. Um, I think it's usually associated with sexual yoga, sexual meditation, where I raise energy, and it happened pretty fast. Raise energy up my spine, up the chakras, and it explodes out of the top of your head, out of your crown, and it's like being electrocuted. And I felt like I was electrocuted twice in a row. Entire body vibrated, and it's like I experienced. I won't get into the details, although I remember them very well. Um, it's like I got to my third eye, and I felt like I fell asleep for a second, and then it was like a sleep paralysis slash being electrocuted twice, and then I woke up from it, and it was like I can't believe that happened. That was something. It's like something I'd been reading about for 6 years and thinking about it for 6 years, but I didn't think that would actually happen to me, and it was more or less spontaneous. Um, and I was not on drugs that day. I think I smoked a few cigarettes, but I wasn't on any of the other drugs that day. Although that year was my body was full of that stuff. And some of those things have long half-lives. Dafinil has a very long half-life. So yeah, that happened in 2016. And I remember, oh God, going on to Sedona in Arizona and like trying to find Drunfellow Melchizedek because he was behind Spiritual Unite, which had a huge ad campaign in 2016. And they were getting all these spiritual believers together onto a forum, and anyone who had experiences with extraterrestrials or otherworldly spirit entities of all sorts, they would like post your experiences and what you saw and everything, and they would let a bunch of people post. But if you posted an angel, like in a Judeo-Christian sense of an angel with wings, they would censor it. So to me, it was like, what is going on here? And that is still a mystery to me. But electioneers are nuts. Like right from the beginning, the there's a spiritual quality to statecraft that I'm just beginning to. I don't even say just beginning to understand. Just beginning to see it. But it's very important. It's very important. And certain things get very, very spiritualized. And there are all sorts of interests. So weird. And I remember learning about DNA upgrades in Sedona and all this stuff that kind of came around for me personally in 2020 with coronavirus, and my experience early on in the coronavirus outbreak or whatever it was losing my breath, like like waking up from a nightmare after hearing Trump say something about millennials on TV. I went downstairs at my parents' house, where in the same place I had the Kundalini awakening 4 years prior, um, which is interesting. I never thought about that until now. I woke up and I couldn't breathe. I could not breathe for a long time, and then I finally like calmed myself down, and then I got myself to breathe again. But once I started breathing again, it was like there was an energy that raised up inside of me, and it felt like I was on ecstasy. And I know what ecstasy is like because I tried ecstasy in either late 2016 or early 2017 in California, um, as part of all that traveling I was doing in 2016. But my experience of coronavirus early on was like, had something to do with these DNA upgrades I learned about, because the connection between DNA and RNA and coronavirus is always, it's always been there. And man, this is still a big mystery. Holy crap. I can't explain kundalini awakening to very many people, or it took like a few years before I even talked to anyone about it online. I wonder if the same thing will happen with whatever is going on, with whatever happens in election years that are psyops, whether there are spiritual forces at play, or high tech scientific forces at play that we don't understand, or they're astrological forces, but there are things going on. Or I just have very, 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 very powerful psychosis within myself that creates spontaneous mystical experiences. I can't be just me. We live in wild times. Because it's like, one thing is like you have to have an experience like this, and you have to be able to at least explain it to yourself enough. But then finding the language to talk to other people about what that kind of experience might have been is a whole different story. But with Kundalini awakening, I could find that, and there, there's concept creep in that, and people mean different things. But once you start to describe it and get more accurate about it, this is a repeating phenomenon that happens in yoga practitioners, but um, sometimes it just happens. The other thing, the ecstasy coronavirus experience, I've not talked to anyone about that, except I talked to one woman that I met in Sedona, named, what's her name, Raven Delacroix, a sonic alchemist, who was talking about DNA upgrades back in 2016 when I was there. I think I remember taking a plane to New York and being on phenibut, and then taking a plane to Las Vegas on, I think it was Frontier, like something really cheap. Uh, and then taking a flight to San Francisco or Sacramento. I don't know if I remember that one so much, or those ones so much. Then I eventually took a bus back, and that was a wild experience in itself. Holy adventures. Are you sure you're ready for an adventure again? I've been like kind of like asking, like, well, can I go on an adventure? When's my next adventure? I'm thinking about 2016, and it's like, I'm not done trying to understand what happened in that year. Um, Man, but having memories like this, I'm just so grateful that I have this life that I have. Oh, mystery.